We'll call to order the Town of Lake Lure Town Council regular meeting Tuesday, September 13th at 5 p.m. Welcome. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it as always. I haven't had a chance to review the agenda. Are there any edits?
Yes, ma'am, I have one. In the consent agenda, item F, October 15th through the 15th. It's not going to be enough time there, so we're going to make that October 15th through the 16th, 2022.
Well, if you must.
I'm not sure that that's enough time, so.
Right. Any other changes to the agenda? Do I hear a motion then?
Make a motion that we approve the agenda
As edited, second?
as edited. Sorry.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Then the agenda stands as edited. Thank you once again. Thank you all for coming. I know it's always hard to on Marine Commission Day, so it's double meeting day, so we appreciate that very much. One thing I would like to let you know, it's kind of a fun thing that's going to happen, and that is on October the 3rd, Cycle North Carolina is going to be using Lake Lure as a rest stop. And the 2022 Mountains to Coast Cycling Ride will have a lunch stop in Lake Lure on Monday, October the 3rd from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So there'll be about 700 cyclists coming through town on their way from Hendersonville to Tryon Equestrian Center, which is where they'll spend the night. So we would love for you to come out and cheer them on and participate in all the fun once again. And this we will give you more details as it comes up, and it'll be on the website. You can check it for that. But also to give you just sort of a heads up that 700 cyclists will be on the road from Hendersonville. Want to reiterate from Hendersonville to Lake Lure, and then going on to Tryon during that time. So you might want to plan all your excursions accordingly. So we appreciate that, and we're delighted to have them here. So just giving you a heads up there. More to come on that. We'll now move on to the town manager's communication. Mr. Perkins.
Yes, sir. I'll make this brief. We went through here, had a good month for public services. I'd like to let everybody know this is an important thing for us. The Citizens app for, I guess, registering things that you notice in the community that needs to be addressed has been put live on the town's website. So if you're out there and you've got a complaint, it's out there in the middle of your road in front of your house or anything that you happen to see, please go on there. It's a way in which we create work orders to address concerns that you bring to our attention. Aside from that, they did complete the automation at the dam for community development. They had a busy month, worked through about 30 permits in various areas. And then moving forward to fire and emergency management, the department responded to 70 calls throughout the month, and they had about 257 hours of training for the month of August as well. They, Movement for Police, and I think that they participated as well. It's something that we all hate to see, that is a necessity in this day and age, but it is working with these departments. The fire department did work with the police department at the Lake Lure Academy and active shooter training. So that is something that we hate to see happen, but it is a necessary training thing, and I was happy to see that they were able to work on that as well. Moving on to Parks and Recreation, they spent about 20 hours of volunteer hours on the Buffalo Creek Park, and then for the month worked about 128 working hours in volunteer time. And I think that's great. It shows a lot of volunteer efforts and support of what we're doing in the community in Parks and Recreation. Moving on into, this is a double. This was reported by Finance as well as Ms. Creechy and Communications. We did receive reimbursement from 2 FEMA grants, and they totaled up to $158,781. Ms. Creechy had a 30 Facebook posts for the community that reached about 40,000. And then their followers for this year was 18,419 for the town's Facebook page. That is a 6% increase over the same time of last year. And then lastly, what I'll do is a major kind of thing for us is that we did receive our permit last month for the installation of our directional drilling during the drawdown for it, so we're actively pursuing that. We will be doing advertising advertising for the work in, I guess it's in September. We're doing a pre-bid meeting, and then we'll do the opening of the bids in October. So that's it.
Thank you,
Nice.
thank you.
Good.
Very
Good.
productive month, I'll say. We'll now go to item number 5, council liaison reports and comments. Commissioner Doster.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Let's see. Zoning and Planning met on August 16th. There is discussion about reworking some of the food truck regulations that we have in town. They're a little antiquated. They came to the conclusion to bring it to our council's working meeting, which was, I think, was on the 24th. And as a consensus, the council agreed that it would be a great idea for them to continue to work to ordinance recommendations, go in and look at some of that stuff. Thanks to Michael for all the help with that as well. They also discussed our sign ordinances to work on some updates for that. And as you guys know, that a lot of stuff that is in that zone, in our zoning and planning, is a lot of things are old, a lot of things need to be looked at, so we're trying to just pick things off little at the time and find some things that relate to us today and things that we can fix. Next meeting will be September 20th. The Parks and Rec meeting was held on September 1st. Green space update, Dana put trail counter in. It was installed August 12th, so half the month basically, and it clicked 294 clicks. There was one day that was completely taken out because it was an anomaly, and she figured they were weed eating and kept going in front of the trail counter, so she just kicked that one out. We tried to put it in a place where we would get some folks. It's a big space, so you can imagine you can't really put one everywhere. So we tried to put it in a choke point or two and see how it did. But I thought that was pretty good for a half of a month. So we'll see how that continues. We're also going to look at checking crossover from Dittmer Watts. How many folks maybe are coming from Dittmer Watts, walking to the green space, or green space walking into Dittmer Watts. So we're going to see how we can work that out. Let's see. Lake Lure Flowering Bridge, just a quick update. Bear heads are for bid. Go to their Lake Lure Facebook Flowering Bridge website to bid. There were 15,718 visitors for August, and that was down a little bit from last year, from the previous month, but they do kind of attribute that to maybe the heat, that people just weren't out there. So far, they've raised $45,000 for the Education Center, and they hosted 80 kids from Polk County YMCA to learn how to dig in the ground. Dittmer Watts did 702 clicks in August, and as I think mentioned, the Buffalo Creek parking lot, that's a big deal. That's over 10 years of effort to make that happen through Rumbling Bald, State Park, Wyndham, and I know that Larry, and I'm going to butcher his last name, so Mo, say his last name. Thank you. Was a big integral part of getting that done. We had a great turnout. A bunch of people were there, and it really is nice. That's it. That's all I have.
All righty, thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Commissioner Diorio.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the Lake Advisory Board, we just had the Marine Commission meeting with the proposal for the lake use regulations with a public hearing. For those of you who weren't at the Marine Commission, there'll be a public hearing on September 26th at 6 o'clock here in the town center for a hearing concerning the new lake use regulations, whatever concerns you may have, and then a subsequent approval of those regulations after that date. So if you can attend, that would be a good time if you're concerned about what's going on with the lake safety issues. On the Board of Adjustments, they did meet this month. Worth noting, I won't go into the specific of the cases because there's a lot of privacy issues related with that, but I'll tell you in general, we're seeing in the Board of Adjustments, which is kind of backwards, we're seeing a lot of people that do construction projects, that do upgrades, structural modifications on their property, working with a bona fide contractor but they're found by a community development team to be out of specification. So they're coming to the BOA after the deed has been done incorrectly, begging forgiveness and consideration for approval of a variance after the fact. That's absolutely the wrong way to do that. If you're thinking about doing any structural modifications or a project or whatever, it's always best to figure out what the rules are with your contractor in the beginning. If you have questions, consult with community development before you have to go to the BOA after the fact. As a matter of fact, most of them that we've seen this year have been non-conforming structures already built, which places the town in a position that we don't like to be in. You know, it's never a good thing to tell someone that their house, a corner of their house has been built into a setback, and in order to rectify it, they have to cut the house. Okay, that's not a good place to be, so I just make it dramatic for you to have an appreciation for that. That concludes my report, Mayor.
Can I say one thing? I'm
Commissioner
sorry,
Foster.
yeah, I left this out, and I would be remiss to not say this. Just so you guys know, obviously, the Dirty Dancing Festival was this past weekend. There were approximately 1,800 out of the 2,500 that signed up that attended. So it's a big event. It worked out great. It poured down rain the whole day, and it still was a great success. Just so you know, there were 100 volunteers, 8 committee members, and 5 paid staff that did that whole entire thing. So I just want to say thanks, and on behalf of the commissioners and the town. Thank you.
We appreciate it, everybody. It was good to see, even with the rain, so many people came, so that certainly speaks well for it. Commissioner Proctor?
ABC Board did meet, as I say almost every month, sales are robust. The manager there has been telling the committee something the last several months that if you go to the liquor store lately, you may realize that the hard-to-get allocated whiskeys are not there, and that's because the state ABC Board, in their infinite wisdom, has decided not to give little stores any of the allocated whiskeys. So if anybody knows any of your state representatives, I encourage you to call them and complain. Especially for, you know, the restaurants that particularly restaurants that do big events, a lot of their clients are expecting to get Blanton's or Weller's or some of the other hard-to-get bourbons, and we just don't have it anymore locally. So that's a big deal to us. So if you can talk to any state representative, that would be great. Just say, hey, by the way, why are you doing this? And put a bug in their ear. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anything else? No. And the steering committee has not met, so we have no report from the steering committee. So we appreciate all the work that all the committees do, the advisory boards. That's invaluable to us to get perspectives from people who are in the community, who are actually active in those areas. Once again, I've been watching the LAB work on those regulations for the last weeks, months, years, to be honest with you, and it's been a real work of love, to be honest with you, because you couldn't do it other than that. So we appreciate everybody. Please continue to volunteer. If you're not on a board now and you think you would like to, please put in an application, because openings come up. You don't always have to wait till it's time for us to make changes on the boards, because people's terms run out. So we appreciate that. We'll now move on to our next part, which is we're very fortunate to have a presentation by the Foothills Regional Comprehensive Transportation Plan. Alan Tooney is here, and we appreciate that. Our projector is not working so that we can see it, but you all cannot see that one up there. I think there are paper copies that everybody can look at the slides, so we apologize for that.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's a very nice introduction, and thank you for allowing us to be on the agenda tonight and to speak on this topic. So my name is Alan Toney. I am the transportation planner for the Foothills Regional Commission. I'm kind of your local bridge, is how I like to describe myself, between you and NCDOT to kind of help you get projects, look at funding, look at options, do some of this long-range planning work. But I say all that to introduce Andy Bailey, Dominique Boyd. They're our colleagues from NCDOT in Raleigh, and they've been working on this project for about 3 years now, and they're going to give you a short presentation on what the Comprehensive Transportation Plan means for the town of Lake Lure.
Thank you.
Good evening. just gonna, actually, just going off what Alan was talking about, really just gonna have a presentation over, the Foothills Regional Comprehensive Transportation Plan. Just really talk through some information about what a CTP is, talk about the recommendations specifically for Lake Lure. And then today we're here to seek adoption for the recommendations in terms of Lake Lure, and then recommending or endorsing, the rest of the county. So specifically, I'm just gonna go ahead and get into it specifically in terms of the area. This is the first time I actually seen it in terms of going through. So what we have is the actual outline. Sorry about that. So what we're going to talk about today, just what a CTP actually is, Comprehensive Transportation Plan again. Talk a little bit about the history in terms of building out this specific CTP, and then the regional major recommendations, and then the actual recommendations for the area, and then consideration for the adoption of the CTP. And then if you guys have any questions afterwards, we're definitely open to answering them. So what is a CTP? CTP, of course, the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, once again, long-range multimodal plan. So when I'm talking about multimodal, you're talking about a highway element, bike, pedestrian, rail, and public transit. In the past, you might have heard of your highway and transit plans, or maybe highway or thoroughfare plans. So now what we try to do is take a look at the other modes and plan for those. We're talking about a long-range plan in terms of 25 to 30-year plan. It's a vision plan, something that you try to encompass various recommendations throughout the area. Develop cooperatively with your local stakeholders. This is how we build our steering committee. So we make sure that we have the various voices to be able to help us see, because of course we're in Raleigh, and so we don't want to plan in a vacuum in terms of that. We want to make sure that we are cooperative and comprehensive in terms of that. Also with the RPO, so Alan was a big part in terms of getting this done, and Carol Fuller, the person that actually was sitting in the seat beforehand, she was big and instrumental in getting this done, so partnership between them two. And then also NCDOT in terms of us at Transportation Planning Division. You're talking about your division offices too, very instrumental in terms of building this stuff out. So we have Hannah back here, that's part of the division office, that was a part of it, and then Nathan, he should be here hopefully at some point in time. Information-wise, within the CTP, we try to incorporate the latest and greatest data. I'll probably mention this again as we go through the presentation, but it's very important because we want to really make sure that we have the right information to make the right decisions in terms of building out recommendations. But we also do take a look at previous plans to make sure that we're looking at everything possible and getting and gathering all the information that we need. So we're looking at local land use plans, also community and statewide goals. So these things are helping us to build out a comprehensive transportation plan. So the reason why we build transportation plans, as you can see in General Statute 136-66.2, just a brief of it, talks about the need for CTPs for various municipalities and the travel demands, meeting the anticipated travel demands through municipalities and in and around municipalities. So just a little bit of information to attach towards that. And the various attributes, like I said before, you're looking for the best information available. That's the information that we're going to use to build it. And then you're also looking to provide a safe and effective mode or effective use of the transportation system. And also you want to give consideration to all modes of transportation. Moving into the next slide, a CTP is a needs-based plan. So a lot of times when we are building out our recommendations to submit within the CTP, we're looking at the needs. Back in the day, you might have had a lot of relationship building in terms of submitting various types of projects. Sometimes there were wants. But we are, in this day and time, we really look towards building needs-based plans that have data that can back them up, sound data that can back them up. So they have an opportunity to move forward into the stage we'll talk about a little bit later, where Alan will typically end up dealing with this You guys will be talking about various projects to submit for the State Transportation Improvement Program. So, of course, needs-based, we're talking about representing community consensus. Again, multimodal transportation, you're evaluating that, and potentially any other mode. So, you know, not in this area, but just in various areas, we're taking a look at airports and potentially ferries. So those are other modes we sometimes take a look at if it's a need to look at. So where are we at in the big picture in terms of creating CTP? So we're at the beginning. What you have in front of you is pretty much the build-out process for any project from beginning to end. And of course, we're at the very beginning in terms of determining the need. Next steps after that, of course, is the stage I was just alluding to in terms of Allen, where you have the prioritization process phase, where you're looking at scoring projects now. So you're looking at CTPs, looking at those recommendations, bringing them forth to then be able to submit to the spot to be able to score. And then from there, once the score is received, spot goes through the process, looking at all the various projects throughout the state. Of course, they will rank from top to bottom in terms of score from, you might as well say, 100 to 0, if you will. The top scoring projects then will more than likely receive funding, and that's the next step, your program development, where the funds will be applied to those recommendations, well, not recommendations, excuse me, those projects. And then moving forward from there, once those projects have money applied to them, we're looking at the project planning phase, where you're looking at the environmental aspect of projects and various impacts. You're just trying to minimize the impacts that could be held by a project. Once that is decided and figured out, you're talking about the next step is project design. And specifically, that's, of course, building out the blueprint for a project, if you will. And then also looking at your right-of-way and acquiring any right-of-way that's needed. And then from there, we're talking about construction, maintenance, and operations. So building out of a project. And of course, over the years, we want to maintain our projects because we want to get our best bang for our buck when we do build these projects. So the next step is just overall history of what we've been doing thus far in terms of this CTP. And I'll try to be brief because there's a lot of steps in there. But in summer 2019, we were able to have our initial discussions of starting the CTP study. And so we initiated that and gathered data, established a study scope, and was able to prepare meeting basics. During this time period, we was able to also build our steering committee, like I said, build up the various members that needed to be built up. So during that time period that happened, late 2019 to early 2020, we was able to develop our vision. So of course, started holding our initial meetings. And in those initial meetings, we was able to develop our community vision, goals and objectives. We was able to also select the various roads that were going to be put into the CTP that we were actually going to look at and study. And in 2020, we were then able to look at do our system assessment, where we was able to analyze our base year data and also look at the various modes in the base year data, project that information out into the future year, and also take a look at the future year data to make sure that the information that we had in front of us, we was able to validate and it was correct. Moving forward into late 2020, mid 21, we was able to analyze various alternatives, evaluate various constraints that we had due to the information that we had. So just looking at any pain points throughout the study roads based on the information we was able to figure out. We was able to evaluate that and then project it out to the future year to then figure out some solutions. And then was able to validate that against our actual vision that we came up with to make sure that it fit as a whole. Late 21, early 22, we was able to develop the draft CTP. So once we developed that, came back to the steering committee, made sure everybody agreed on that, and then we were able to complete the whole CTP in terms of the draft form of it. And everybody, a lot of different people actually had eyes on this. So of course, just going through, combing through, and making sure that everything looks good, and we're making sure that we have the right information. So we are here now, mid-late 22, where we're seeking local adoption. We have 16 overall. that we have been seeking. I think we've had 11 that we've been able to get so far, so we're on to the last 5, including you guys. So it's been a really good time actually going through and just being able to have those conversations, and been able to just go ahead and express the needs for this stuff and the recommendations. So it's been good in terms of that. So going through that, we've been able to go through that process, and now once we get past that and be able to get all 16 adoptions, excuse me, I'm sorry, I skipped a step. In terms of development draft plan, I actually went over to adoption, excuse me. Once we agree and complete the plan, of course, seeking a local adoption, once we get to 16, we'll be able to go forth and go into the Board of Transportation and seek adoption. So that'll be back in Raleigh. But we have to have all 16 first, excuse me, in terms of that. In late 22, so once we have that from the board, we're able to close out from there and be able to distribute the plan. And so it will be online, and then also you have physical copies. So it'll be published at that point. So next, will be Andy.
He got to give you all the technical background about this. I get to actually give you the meat and potatoes of the presentation. So very quickly, I wanted to first highlight the highway facility types map. Typically, this talks about the types of facilities that they're going to be in the area. And as you can see, beyond the sign routes that are in there, which are considered major thoroughfares, and the thin blue, black lines, which are usually secondary roads, are considered minor thoroughfares. There's no other big kind of road expansion. There's no need for big road expansion in this area. But we wanted to share that to just give you an idea, because some areas they have freeways and things like that we differentiate to talk about the future system. However, here's the recommendations, and this is forgive me for saying this, but if y'all were around a few years ago, Lake Lure and Chimney Rock did a CTP. We really didn't reinvent the wheel on the highway portion, just because you still have the same needs, which include, of course, trying to have I'm going to skip over to the document here so I can read this correctly. The proposed Lake Lure Parkway, which will get you around the west side of town, for lack of a better term, which is in this proposal, as well as the Old Sand Branch Road extension, which goes up to the north side of town, which the primary reason for that is some of the safety and the EMS concerns that we've heard about, is to be able to make that connection to really allow that traffic, and also, as a secondary benefit, allow easier mode of travel than having to go west or go east to come back west for a very long distance. The other roads that you'll see, and I'll skip back to the main graphic here, are modernizations. And typically modernizations are, these roads are very narrow, bad sight distance, there's no shoulder. And again, I understand being in the mountains, being originally from the mountains, I'm originally from just north of Asheville. It's hard to do this, and so I understand that sometimes you have to take what you can get, but these are the roads that are identified that are things that are needing to be addressed in terms of modernizing and trying to make these roads a safer road to go on, especially when you have no shoulder and cars can run off very easily. So those are those recommendations. We also have, as Dominic mentioned earlier before, it's a multimodal plan, so we have also bicycle and pedestrian recommendations. And primarily, it's being focused kind of in your little downtown pocket there, along where the parkway is going to loop around, getting those all interconnected to your already existing walkway that you have, and then going east of town, and this actually goes from Lake Lure all the way to the Tri-Cities, is to make that a bike facility as well as just simply a road. And again, I realize that topography is going to be a big challenge there to try to get an adequate bike facility on there. It is on the plan. Our job is to identify the need, and future project planning will be able to identify how to do it. But these are the needs that we've identified for Lake Lure, again, consistent with your previous plans. We didn't need to reinvent the wheel here so much as to make sure that these were reflected not only to you again, but also to be reflected on the Foothills Regional Plan, which of course is McDowell, Rutherford, and Polk counties. So, and again, this is a lot of information. Realize if there's some questions, I definitely want to be able to answer them. Dominic and I are here, as well as folks from the RPO, as well as also from the division office. Nathan and Hannah are both here. They may be able to answer some more project-specific type questions that you may have that are going on, which I realize we've talked a little bit with them, that there might be some questions there. Again, we're seeking the adoption of this plan. This plan will hopefully lead to other projects down the road.
Thank you very much. That's good news. Very, very good news, to be honest with you. Those interests are things that you're bringing up are things that we're certainly considering and consider to be of great impact to our ability to provide public safety, particularly when you talk about the Sand Branch Road and the connection there. That's critical for us to be able to provide the public safety that we need to for the people in that part of our city. So, but all of them are good. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Proctor? Oh, go ahead.
I'm thinking David's asking the same question.
Same question, yeah, Rich. All right, so
Go ahead.
thanks for the update. So, we've been in discussions with Department of Transportation, some of your folks, for years on our bridge over the Lake Lure Dam. It's been earmarked in the STIP, the State Infrastructure Plan. Latest inspections on the bridge put it in a fair condition, but there was a plan, NCDOT plan, within 5 years to replace the bridge with some sort of alternate. So I guess I'm asking, is it on the CTP?
I'm going to turn this over to Nathan.
I
who's
see you
our-
guys,
Okay.
I see you guys looking at each other and grinning.
Yeah,
I came prepared or tried to.
Okay.
So that project is not on the CPT. So the CPT is for long-range plan.
Okay.
We're much past that for that project. Currently, that's in the full draft STIP. The current construction schedule will be 2024.
Okay.
So I talked to the project manager this morning, just to get an update, in anticipation of this. And where we are now is still where we were. We did have a small shutdown with our budget issues over the past couple of years. We are starting back up. They have new cost estimates for I think there were 4 different alternates we looked at. And the next step will be to pick up those conversations with y'all, the town, as we start to kick this project back off and work towards construction. in
Yeah,
the
no,
next 2
I would
years.
say, that's great. I would say that the thing that makes this project pretty interesting is there's 2 paths to this. There's the redoing of the dam, which we're in year 1 of a 10-year plan. We know, we have the conceptual design. We know where that dam's going to be. So we know, we have more information. As that train goes down the path, we have to make sure it meshes well with the DOT plan for what to do with the bridge.
Yes, and a lot of our alternates consider that. I know from my recollection from years ago, we had one alternate that went across the lake, which wasn't
Yep.
well received, and I think we had 3 below the dam
Yes,
that worked to try and coordinate y'all's future plans.
okay.
And picking up that conversation and selecting an alternate, going to public hearing would be the next steps that we're soon to.
So
embark on.
what should we do in order to facilitate that dialogue at this point? It's out, you're saying it's outside the scope of the CTP?
Yes,
it's not
so
really-
it's actually funded. So the
Okay.
CPT would really be
Okay.
future needs for future projects
Okay,
you want to get
okay,
done.
so that's a direct with
We're already,
NCDOT?
yeah, we're
Gotcha.
already past that
Oh.
point. So if you can reach out to us, and I can
Okay.
give my contact information to staff, and we can coordinate a meeting. And the first step is probably gonna be for us at the division level, our local DOT staff, to sit down with the project management group in Raleigh.
Okay.
That's working on design, and
Okay.
y'all, and kind of come back to the table, because I feel like we need to really pick up where we left off. We kind of.
Yeah, we do.
It's been a while.
It's been a year, and things
Yeah.
have changed, you know, like I say, it's moving very quickly, all good. As a matter of fact, I will tell you, probably even more options have opened up based on what the conceptual design did with the dam. So I think we're at that point where we need to sit down again.
Yeah, I think and like I said, the pause really, some of that had to do with our budget issues, but we're back on now, so we can kind of pick it up and hopefully
Excellent,
get
you
the
have
project
money.
moving
That's
in the
good.
right
That's
direction.
good.
Yeah.
That's good news. We
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much
Thank
for
you.
that. Any other questions?
What is it, fellas, that you need from us for the adoption timelines?
Well, you can either choose to do it today, Or if you would rather take this as information and approve it at your next meeting, you can do that as well. We're gonna give you the option either way.
Okay, so what we would be adopting is what we've seen.
Yeah,
Here.
yes, sir.
Okay. That's up to council at this point, if you were felt okay with that, or if you would need some more time to
You know, I
digest.
think there's some conversation we might, it's a little hard to see from here, to be honest with you. It's to give it just a little more time to look at it, so that if you have that time, we have another meeting, we'll have another council meeting, second week in October.
Would you be comfortable, Mr. Tony coming back for that one, or would you like us there as well? We can make accommodations.
No, we're fine with Mr. Tony coming back, absolutely, it's a long way from.
Yeah, how's the buy-in been from McDowell, Polk, and Rutherford? Because you had the
Sure.
auxiliary link on there, and I was looking through those, so I didn't know kind of where we stood with the other counties.
Absolutely. In fact, last night, McDowell County themselves adopted, both Marion and Old Fort did that a few weeks before that.
Okay,
I want to say, aside from Chimney Rock, Lake Lure, and Ruth, all other towns and cities within Rutherford County have, and Columbus and Tryon so far have adopted their section. So this is moving.
okay,
Perfect,
wonderful.
perfect. Well,
Thank
we're
you very much.
delighted,
Yeah.
we're delighted in
Ours
that.
presents some unique challenges from some of the other municipalities, as we see it, and as we all know, so thank you for that information.
Do you see or have any feel for how these projects that you discussed this evening will fare out during prioritization?
I will say that this is something that Mr. Tony and also Ms. Cook, Hannah Cook as well, and I'm guessing maybe Stephen Sparks as well with the division. Those are folks that can talk about, okay, we want to test some of these projects out, see how those score based upon what kind of road they are, what kind of ranking they are, and I'll let Mr. Tony talk about that.
Okay.
So, Mr. Perkins, thank you for asking that question. So, as you know, prioritization 7 is starting next year, probably during the summer, sometime next year. So if you guys have some projects in mind that you saw on here, start thinking about that, start getting a list, start getting them to send to me so I can send to Stephen over at DOT so he can start kind of taking that preliminary scoring, so you know what's going to score well, what might not score as well. And that way we know going into that.
Okay.
Yeah, just like I said, you know, get a nice list together of what you think. I know and
So what,
it's the one on,
so Eleanor, what are you saying is we need to go through these lists, specifically pick out those that are of special concern to the town,
yes,
and then go through discussions with you and DOT staff on how we think those projects will ultimately.
score, yeah, and they have a scoring process they can run these through early on.
Okay.
And that way we can go ahead and get a feel for what's going to score well on the step and what's not going to score well. Because we don't necessarily want to submit something that's going to score, you know, a 1 out of 100.
Yes, I
Yeah,
understand.
and I don't think we're going to want, I don't think you have anything like that. But
Okay.
we want to make sure. And I know probably one of the big ones for y'all is the safety project, and you'll forgive me for forgetting the road's name.
Sandbridge Road.
Yeah, I know that's going to be a big one for you guys.
It
And
is.
that's when we can start getting that process started on that.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, this is perfect, because we can have the discussion at our working meeting in 2 weeks, and then be ready to do the
Fantastic.
approval at our next council meeting.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
do
sir.
have a question. There was a blue line on there that's Boys Camp Road and yellow line that's Sand Branch Road. Currently, those are Town of Lake Lure roads. How does that work, working with DOT?
Yeah.
So we identify a network within each town and each county, and some of those might be town roads. These are roads, obviously, that we have no jurisdiction over, and that are identified that may be something you would consider for any town, PAL bill money or things like that you may get. It's just something it's an FYI to the town for your future use, if possible.
So there's no plan on, like, Boys Camp Road used to be a state road. There's no plan to maybe take that back?
I will let you talk to division about if
Yeah,
that's something that could be done. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But as a follow-up to that, Jim, and that was a great question. So if we're going to try to go after state money, CTP endorsement for the Sand Branch, does that have to be a state entity, or can that be a town entity to be eligible for that money?
That's probably gonna be a state, as state thing, and so this is
Oh, that's a big
something-
question.
Right,
Okay.
this is something where this has been identified, and we're not really sure how the funding's gonna be gotten.
Okay.
And I'll be honest with you about that, oh, it's local, it's local, yeah, it's local.
You can get federal money through the prioritization process for non-state roads as long as they're certain.
Yeah, it's,
Multiple class, but not for
right,
local.
it's a local, it's a local road, it's a local road, yeah. So, this is where this comes, I think you'll have to have discussions with division about who does what and how it's funded. This is a
Is,
unique problem.
is Sam Branch gonna be designated as a local because it's attached to Boys Camp, which is local? Is that why it's getting a local
And I-
designation?
And forgive me, what I was talking about was, it's called functional classification, it's the federal money.
Well, yeah, and I was just talking about local in Lake Lure.
And that's the thing, is that if it's a local road and locally maintained, I'm not
But,
sure how.
but Sam
we-
Branch doesn't really exist at this point. So,
Right.
but you're saying that it's going to be classified as a Lake Lure road and not a state road?
Potentially.
Okay.
And that's a question I can't answer.
Okay,
I mean, this has been identified as a need for quite a while from Lake
Yeah.
Lure.
Yeah,
And it's something where I think there could be some, talk between, NCDOT, division and you about how this could be done, especially if you score it and it scores well.
Yeah.
And that could be something
Yeah.
you could ask for DOT's help. I'm not, this is not
Yeah.
my hat, but, at least I can point in that direction.
gotcha.
I've had
gotcha.
I've had a state road that was done as a local project, that was done as a state road with the agreement that the state would maintain it for a year and then it would turn into a local road, but it was
Oh,
done with
interesting.
state funds. So that,
Yeah.
I think that's a division conversation, but we can certainly have that.
Okay.
Perfect, good. Any other questions? Well, thank you all so very much for this presentation. And we'll look
Thank
forward
you.
to seeing you
Thanks,
back at our next town council meeting.
I'll be back.
Thank you,
and
Mr. Tony.
Thank you again for your time. Thank you
Well,
for your consideration.
You are certainly
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Finally, to remember, that's a 25-year plan, so it doesn't stop us from doing it.
It does not. We'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is public comment. If there's anyone who would like to make a public comment, you're welcome to come forward to the podium. If you will state your name and your address. You have 3 minutes to share with us any comments that you have that you feel would be productive for us. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment? Well, then we thank you all for coming, at any rate. We will move on then to our consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to accept the consent agenda as edited?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as edited.
Second,
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Then the consent agenda is approved as edited. We will now move on. We have no unfinished business. We were very productive last month. We'll move on to new business. Our new business is a request from property owner Josh Skudlarek of 315 Lakeview Road for written approval from town council for adding fill at or below the lake shoreline. I believe Mr. Mike Williams is going to address this for us.
This is not the one that I really enjoy doing, but I've got the request from the property owner. Ms. Scolari, are you? Okay, good to see you. We had an issue where there was a report of sand being filled in on an existing beach, which is against the code. It's pretty clear in our ordinance that you cannot. You can have a beach, an existing beach, it's grandfathered in, it's legal non-conforming use, but you cannot add the fill. And the reason is because of the fill going into the lake. If you got fill on a beach, the reason you have to re-nourish it is because the wave action is taking the sand into the lake as fill. So, it's not something we go looking for, but this one came up. There's a big pile of sand. We went back out there, posted a notice, there's nobody there, posted a notice saying, you know, this can't be done, stop work order, contact us, didn't hear anything. That was July the 19th. On August the 11th, we'd still not had any contact. We'd had some contacts with family members, apparently, some friends at the property, and have been told the communication been made, we sent letters, we made the efforts. We even actually had the police department reach out to the police department in the community where the property owner lived, or lives, and just ask them to contact us, say we need to talk. Didn't hear anything. So on August the 11th, we put together a notice of citation assessing a $100 a day fine until this was rectified. And on the 12th, we received a pretty quick response after money got in, but we had a response from an engineer who stated he was working with the property owner to deal with the violation. Didn't hear anything more, and on August the 18th, I got a call from the property owner and said he was working on cleaning it up. That actually came about 2 days after I had reached out to the engineer and said it would be a good idea for the property owner to reach out to us. So we did talk with him, had a very good conversation. Told him I hate that, you know, this is, I understand the situation of having a existing beach on the property, but it is prohibited. And the engineer had told him as well that it would not be anything that we could that they could really dispute, that it would need to be cleaned up. And so he, at that point, said he was working to hire somebody to clear the sand out. 2 days later, I got another call, and he said at that point that he said at that point that he felt like he's being singled out and that there are other beaches on the lake, and why wasn't anything happening there? So we talked about that. I said, unfortunately, I know they're there. You can have a beach, you just can't replenish sand. And that was the issue there. And we talked about the issue that it wouldn't have become an issue if we'd been able to communicate prior to that. We had about a month with no contact and couldn't get anybody to reach out. And that's why the fines came up. So we talked about the violation, told them about the ordinance, that it can only be, Phil can only be introduced with the approval of town manager. And so on the Monday following that, a couple days later, I got a letter by email asking for approval. It's addressed to the mayor, to town council, and to the lake structures, asking for approval to keep the sand on the beach. That's the letter that I sent to y'all. That's the letter where he's asking for approval, which is what the ordinance says. And that's what I presented to you. I did make on the report I gave to you, I made the recommendation that you not make a decision at this point because it's also against the Army Corps of Engineers rules, and it's against the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. And I suggested to the property owner that he needs to get approval from them or ask for approval from them, and then let us consider it through the town council. So that's where we are.
All right. Any questions? Well, we appreciate that update, and we will await communication from you then when that approval has been gotten from DEQ and the Army Corps of Engineers. Thank you very much. I don't know if he was interested in talking. I don't think so. No, he's not interested. That then is our last item on the agenda. And if there's no other business, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
All right.
Then we stand adjourned. We thank you for coming, all of you.
What's that?